I've been thinking lately about why I do these videos. Why do I write? Why do I do the work I do? And just kind of getting deeper connected to the purpose of all of this. And I'm a life coach. Those of you probably know this. This is what I do for an occupation, and my mission in life is to help people have a better life. So, in the past, I've danced around being a life coach, being an executive coach, being a performance coach, being an emotional intelligence consultant, and and I do a lot of emotional intelligence work, because the one of the main things that emotional intelligence is based around is knowing oneself, knowing why I do what I do, knowing what I do that works well, knowing what I do that doesn't work well, and then figuring out solutions to that stuff. But I've come back to this idea of being a life coach. And I dare say that I'm teaching people how to live a richer, fuller life, how to be successful at living. And as crazy as it is I myself have not been great at that. And there's been things about simply just living life that I've failed at. And so each week I'm bringing videos, I'm writing stuff in my blog, and I'm teaching people in the groups and in the individual connections that I have things about life, things about experiencing life to the fullest. So I've been talking lately about this idea that we desensitize ourselves in life in order to survive. And I think that this is a good thing. I think this is a very smart, adaptive thing that we do. We evolve to be able to manage unpleasant or traumatic environments and situations so that we can carry on and survive and live for another day. But part of that is that when we live another day is that it is a lower level of living. It's a desensitized level of living. So another facet to this that I've talked about a bit is, sensation seeking. And high sensation seeking is another way to cancel out and not feel something that we're trying to not feel. I do this, and I've become well aware of this phenomenon because of my own research around this. And in clinical world, this is called hyperarousal. So I become aroused to such an extent that I'm no longer paying attention to the other stuff that's unpleasant and doesn't feel good. And another thing is, and I like talking in terms of spectrums and figuring out, because one of the things that's important is we got to figure out where we are. And if we're going to go to New York, it's going to be a pretty good idea to figure out where you're at, what your starting point is, so that you know where you're headed. You find a bearing, you find your vector, and then you can move, and locomotion or thrust or whatever it is you want to call it. So the other thing that we do is, sensation avoiding. And this is the numbing, the checking out, the distraction. This is the swiping. This is anything and everything that we use to, again, not feel. So on this spectrum of high sensation seeking or sensation avoiding, that's the thing that I want to introduce, is this idea of where are you? Where are any of us? And so that we can figure out, how do I move towards feeling again? How do I feel towards dealing with this coping mechanism that I have taken on in order to survive and not feel, shame, guilt, grief, any of those things that that we think are going to hurt us or that are going to be unpleasant to experience. So I've come to realize that in order to feel good things, we have to feel the bad things too. And I think that's part of why we seek and we seek and we seek and we seek, is because in some ways we've made this deal with ourselves to shut stuff down so that we don't feel it. We suppress, we repress, and those are ways that we can just not feel. The other thing that I think we do, which is still not quite feeling, is we express. We communicate about it, we talk about it, but we don't actually experience it. And and I think that where I want to introduce this idea is that there are these ways that we just fall into our negative emotions and we just hang out there, which we would call wound worshiping. And I don't think that that's facing our whole selves either. I think that in order to release negative emotions, negative stuff, that's sensations and things that are stored in the body, I think that we need to experience them. We need to fully get with them through facing them and slowing down, becoming still, and facing them. So I bring this up to you because this is another way that I think that if once we release these negative things by experiencing them, rather than numbing out or high sensation seeking, suppressing, repressing, suppressing being consciously avoiding them, repressing being unconsciously avoiding them, then we're not living fully. And we know, I think there's an intuitive part of us that knows that there's got to be more. And the more that we get lost in is chasing stuff rather than living in this moment and experiencing it to its fullest. So the greater kind of exploration for you here, the opportunity that I have, is to think about these questions that I've got. And what are the ways that you set up in your life to not feel of all that stuff that I was just talking about? And then once you kind of identify, and newsflash, it's probably all of them in different times and in different ways. But after you kind of get with that and you kind of sit with that and assess and recognize where you do this, the next thing to ask yourself, of course, is why do you do that? What is the purpose of that? What is that accomplishing? And then, what do you think would happen if you experienced life more fully, the good and the bad? Because the times where I have had very, very, very powerful negative emotions, I thought that facing them would just swallow me up and pull me down and pull me under, and I'd never get back out. I would fall into a depression, or I would fall into something where something would snap and I wouldn't come back out. And if you're like me, which I don't think I'm doing anything special, and you've found that when you've faced your feelings and you've done this, that there's some type of release, and that then actually you live life fuller, you experience a richer, deeper experience in life, then you know that I'm just kind of calling you out to do this to a greater and greater degree. But the thing that I'm going to use to spur you to think about this and to get you to face them in some systematic way as a practice, I think that this is a lifelong practice, is to look at what it costs you. And what it costs you to not feel with your family, with loved ones, with your partners, and figure out what happens in your existence when you run away, you repress, you suppress, you do all these things, hyper arouse and sensation avoidance. And what does it cost you to not feel in all of that, in your relationships and in your existence? And I'm thinking that, like, when I call you out on what it costs you, then I can say, yeah, stop doing that. Stop doing that. The costs are too great for you to just simply exist and to not experience life. So that's what I've got for you. Thanks for your time. Have a great day.